Shalom guys, it's your girl Aleta Israel, and I'm here at Mabel's table with Ghana Consultations, of course. We're here with the prestigious, is that a word?
That's a word.
Okay, prestigious Rabbi Kohen Halevi. Like, we thank you so much for your time today. I know you are a very busy man, but we appreciate you taking time to address a very needed, conversation that must be had about the Asebu PanAfrican village. So we're going to go right into it with just some of the questions that some of my viewers, some of your viewers are always asking about the Asebu project. Can you give us some back history or a backstory of just Asebu area in general?
Thank you very much, Aleta, and thank you for inviting me on your program that is getting more and more momentum. Very proud of you and how you have captured the attention of our people, especially as it relates to communicating about Ghana.
Thank you.
And those of us living in Ghana, probably still one of the most undertold stories in the world about what's happening in Ghana, Africa, and especially specifically the Central region.
Right.
Yes, but Asebu, Asebu used to be one of the best kept secrets in Ghana. I say used to be because ever since the year of return, its name is getting more and more popularity. People are hearing about it, both for positive things and negative things. Unfortunately, recently, for a lot of negative things, but it's not, so, and that's why I'm happy that you've invited me on this program to try to clear up some of the discrepancies and misnomers that are surrounding Asebu. Asebu is an ancient township, settlement, and village, and people have not heard this magnificent story unless you've taken the time to look it up or find one of the elders to talk about it. Asebu settlement has it by oral tradition that it was settled many years ago as one of the first settlements and people coming to settle in the central region of Ghana. Its story goes back into antiquity about the great story of Egypt, and actually a biblical reference of the ancient Israelites actually leaving Egypt during the Great Exodus, and during the time of the crossing of the Red Sea, that Pharaoh had sent some of his officers and army to chase the Israelites when they left Egypt, to bring them back into Egypt, but that there was a contingency of that army that did not actually, that left out late. And they got there when they saw some of their fellow military men who were pursuing the Israelites drowned in the Red Sea, which is the Sea of Reeds. And that they therefore felt a little intimidated and embarrassed to go back and tell Pharaoh that they had not completed his mission. So they decided that they were going to continue to migrate and find their own settlement, and actually ended up doing that with some of the Israelites. And they found their way of migrating all the way through various stopovers and campings to West Africa, here to the central region of ancient Ghana. Not ancient Ghana in the sense of ancient Ghana that used to be the actual territory of ancient Ghana, which is north from here, but what the territories that did not have the name Gold Coast and did not have the current name Ghana, but still had the settlement and settled the Asebu kingdom. And they also have the legend of the great giant Asebu, who was one of the first settlers here as well. He is legendary in Ghana.
That's a name.
That's a name of a person.
Okay.
And he is known as a giant here in Ghana. And like in any culture, when you tell the feats and you tell the accomplishments of an individual, it kind of swells that individual up. Mm-hmm. This is, of course, before television and modern journalism. So when you tell great stories about an individual, be he male or female, they have a tendency to grow in stature, not only in the legacy that tells about their history and their feats as individuals, but also they have a tendency to grow in size in the minds of the people. Mm-hmm. So we hear that he was both a giant in size as well as a giant in accomplishments. Mm-hmm. And that is all associated with the ancient and name of Asebu. And they have carried on up into this day. Of course, to be able to carry on, they had to survive many wars, many skirmishes with other competing tribes and ethnic groups throughout the years and the centuries, but they've maintained themselves as one of the largest territories in the central region of current-day Ghana.
Wow. So Asebu is historic and biblical all at the same time. So this amazes me because the Most High brought like us all the way from America and put us in this very location. Like it's not by chance. So to hear the biblical backstory, to me it's like, man, the Most High makes no mistakes and he knows exactly what he's doing. Like this is deep. Like,
absolutely.
So I knew a little bit about that, but I didn't hear it like that before. So thank you for sharing the backstory on Asebu as a whole. So who founded the Asebu project? How did that come about?
Well, a very good question. You know, this is history in the making, so it's very important that we have an accurate account. And you know, his history. One of our great teachers, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakanan, said, "Truth is like a shattered mirror, which you can pick up pieces of it, and everybody sees a reflection of themselves." And that means that there are a number of people that need to be spoken to get all the pieces together to talk about the truth of how this project came about.
Okay.
My truth in it and my experience in it is that I had a delegation come to me of the Asebu traditional area, which was led to me by one Oba Kessi Ampa, who had just become installed as a subdivisional chief in Asebu, and he led his paramount chief to me, Amenfi, Okatachi Amenfi, who is the paramount chief of the Asebu traditional area, along with his elders. And this was during the year of return. And they had heard that I was involved with the year of return. I was on the National Planning Committee. I had previous history with Obakesi as a young man throughout the years before he became installed as a Nana there. He knew my activity in the Pan-African community. He knew my familiarity as someone from the diaspora living in Ghana. And he and the Traditional Council and the Oman Hen, they came up with an idea of engaging the diaspora and doing something significant for the year of return. And so when they came to me as a delegation to present this idea to me, my role was to play a part in trying to bring it to the attention of the diaspora and engage the diaspora about 5,000 acres of land that he was willing to commit to any members of the diaspora who were interested in coming here for the year of return for more than just a cosmetic visit, who were interested in coming here, acquiring land, and building a home and settling amongst their family and brothers here in Ghana. And he didn't want them to go through any trouble of being cheated or treated dubious or being scammed, you know, anything like that. So he presented that idea to me, and I thought that was a good idea. Like I said, he wasn't alone. He had a number of elders with him, Queen Mother with him, and they had presented this program. I thought about it. I thought it was a very laudable idea because many people do come to me at various times in search of how to find land or where's a good way to start to find land. So I thought it was a noble idea. And so I said that I would also try to make this knowledge known not only to the diaspora community, but to members of the Year of Return Planning Committee. So lo and behold, they visited me about 3 different occasions to talk about how potentially to structure this, how to potentially market this, and how to make it known again amongst the diaspora. Subsequently, when we were getting ready to launch PanAfest 2019 during the Year of Return, a contingency came down to the launching, of which Okatachi Amenfi was a part of that delegation, and actually, you know, sat with us on our head table. And during the launching, he actually mentioned to the audience that he had land available because someone in the audience who had gotten wind of it asked the question that he heard that there was a chief who wanted to give away land to the diaspora. And so he confirmed that he was that chief and that he had made that offer. And then we had, just prior to the launching of PanAfest, or the coming on of PanAfest that year, the president himself of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was visiting the Central Region on a familiarity tour there. And while he visited the Central Region, he visited Asebu. And when he met with the king there, he made mention to the president of this idea and this initiative. And the president himself thought it was a good idea and a good initiative. So during PanAfrican opening ceremony in Durban of Chiefs, in the president's address that year, he actually did mention there was a chief who had made an offer for any members of the diaspora who wanted land to settle, that he had made land available and set aside 5,000 acres to do that. So you see, it was not a in-the-closet project. It was not something that was in a corner in the side of a rug or under a rug. It was something that was presented out in the open. So you see, at the launch of the PanAfrican that year, during the opening ceremonies of the Durban of Chiefs, it was reiterated by none less than the president. And then we had the PanAfrican took place, and it was over. And somewhere around September of 2019, there was an initiative to bring the king, Okatachi, to America, to make an announcement that this project was open for diasporans. So we actually launched the idea at the Ghana Embassy in New York. Wow. And we had the Ghana ambassador in New York, and we had the Ghana ambassador travel from Washington, D.C. We had the director of diaspora affairs. We had a member of the board of the GTA, Ghana Tourism Authority, who was also a member of the Year of Return Planning Committee. We were all in New York at that time. We had the president, the UNIA, AFL. We had the brother who was there, Umar Johnson. Oh, wow. We had a packed room, standing room only, and people even in the lobby of the Ghana embassy in New York, wow, to hear the launching of this project. And so that project, people wanted to start to buy land then and put down their deposit right then and there. But I was one of the advocates, along with the support of others, who said, no, we're not ready for that level yet, because the land is raw land. The land has to be demarcated, the land has to be measured out, it has to be plotted out. So there was some work to do before you can start to actually collect money and do allocation. So that was put in order, and we had a successful launch. So upon coming back to Ghana, what we also decided to do, to put things in proper order, because in order for me to associate myself with the project, I said that it had to be some structure to it, and there had to be some order to it, because having had experience in Ghana, I know there's a lot of things that go on, and people have a lot of high expectations, and sometimes they may be disappointed. So I said that what we need to do is set up a structure so that I had some hand and the monitoring and even control of the business affairs of this project, because I didn't want my name and my image to be put out there, and I had no control over how our people were handled and how the project took place. So we decided that we were going to register a company called the PanAfrican Asebu Village. Oh wow! Okay. And so it was registered. So Okatachi the king, myself representing the diaspora, and Obakesi, who represented the mediator between bringing us together, we became the principal directors of the company. Okay. So we met at the Ghana Tourism Authority head office a couple of times to talk about how to structure it. We met with a lawyer who was a member of the committee of Beyond the Return. We met with the CEO of the GTA, the director again of Diaspora Affairs, to try to put structure again to how this would be allocated. We talked about the size of plots, we talked about the price of plots, and we talked about the term free. Right, yes. And I was one of those who felt that we shouldn't say free, because money was going to be exchanged. Right. And once money is exchanged, I was thinking about from the diaspora. Yes. If you tell our people from the diaspora free, they expect it's free. Yeah, zero. And if you ask them for $1, they're going to say you told me a story. Free. You lied to me. So the discrepancy was over. The clarity between the land was not being charged for, but the registration of the land, what it cost to demarcate the land, survey the land, and service the land was where the actual fees were going to go. And so, again, although I surrendered I was always on record that that's still not free.
Yeah, it's still not free.
So we should say what it is.
Right.
That very low cost land.
Yeah,
for,
affordable.
For expenses only.
Yeah.
You know, so you can explain that the land didn't have any fee attached to it, but there were expenses.
Yeah.
So that means that's a low cost land.
Yeah.
But not free.
Exactly.
But anyway, that free won out. So free is how it's marketed.
Right.
And so that's what prevailed. So in any event, the project started to go on. I asked another very close friend of mine, someone who also repatriated a year earlier. We got to be very close. Mr. Kwame Nitoto, who had some real estate experience in the United States. And I told him, because I was very busy, I lent myself to the idea and the concept, but I didn't have time to stay on top of it. So if he would, knowing real estate, if he would basically take the lead and represent myself and stay on top of the project and guide the project through, I would feel very comfortable, at least knowing that I had not left it alone and I had not left it unattended.
Right.
And so that's how, he also got introduced to the project. And we talked about a number of things about structure and how to keep things in order. And I think at one point there was some question around turning over that large size of land to an NGO or registered organization, that the land should stay in the name of the people and the land should be controlled by the traditional council. And that was never a problem, but the problem was, again, structure. So the latter was chosen in terms of how the land would be managed. It would be managed by the Oman Hen and the traditional council, and that we would try to find a way to fit in how an advisory body would come in. So all of the registration of the land, all of the payments for the land, eventually, initially and eventually, all went through the traditional council. That they would remain the sole allocators of the land and the sole collectors of revenue for any land that was to be allocated. We came up with a system that, since we had no control over time span for indentures or registration, we said upon the payment for your land, you'll be given a receipt and a land allocation certificate, documenting that you had paid money and you were given a plot of land.
Right.
And then that was to lead to eventually you receiving an indenture.
Okay.
So gradually, involvement, hands-on involvement with people like myself, and eventually even Kwame Nitoto, faded, and that it began to be handled strictly by the traditional council, and we became basically overseers of making sure people got their papers when they were ready, made sure the distribution took place, and that people got it. When there was any discrepancies, we were to lead people to investigate the discrepancies, sit down with Nana, go over these issues, bring his attention to it, and have it addressed. So it actually has swelled, in spite of all of the challenges that have come out. I hear now over 400 people have actually purchased plots in Asebu,
in the PanAfrican village.
Wow. Are building their homes. Some are living in their homes.
Some live in there. The lights are up.
They got the lights up. They brought the electricity in. Some are, working on the water. They're working on the road itself. So a project is in motion.
Yeah.
Very positively. It's happening.
It's happening.
In spite of the challenges, and in spite of the naysayers, and in spite of those who would love to paint it as a very negative experience of something that is happening, in the midst of confusion and a mess and doubt, which has also, brought some of our own characters into question by people who didn't even give or have enough respect to do proper investigation or ask questions. That's why I respect what you're doing, because technically speaking, you're the first interview that I'm having of someone coming to me, asking me questions direct from a holistic manner.
Right.
That I know is going public.
Yeah.
Not that I think I'm having a private conversation and it ends up public.
Right. Exactly.
Yes. But an interview that I know is happening,
Yeah.
and that I know that is going to be public, and that I can answer it holistically. Any questions you have to ask me, that I made myself available for that to happen.
Yeah, and thank you for that. We really do appreciate it, because like you said, the Pan-African Village has a very big audience now. It is so many people know about this project. Millions of people, I want to say. They're always talking about it. Ghana is the talk of everyone's tongue right now. And so we just I thought it was important to sit with one of the founders to make sure that my followers are comfortable with this transition, with understanding that the biggest thing you said was that people are living there. Like, they've already built their house, moved in, got their feet up, got their gardens, they sustainably off of the grid, and they're living their new life of freedom. And so this is real.
Absolutely. It's very as real as you can get.
Yeah.
I know that, there are a few propaganda artists in the country who have put together propaganda that they are scam artists.
Yes.
Asebu's land scam.
Yep.
And people deceiving people.
Yep.
And usually people who cry the loudest are guilty themselves of something. But like I say, these are distractors. And you're going to always have that when you have something positive going on.
Yeah, especially something of this magnitude.
Of course. I mean, you can't imagine something of this magnitude. I mean, we've had a number of movements of trying to get brothers and sisters in the diaspora, the historic diaspora by virtue of the North Atlantic slave trade, to return back to Africa. We've had ideas, initiatives, and all of them seem to fizzle one way or another. But 400 people in one area,
hallelujah,
under one program, and people living there already,
in the
people
midst
making
of
their way in
right?
the midst of all that, something has happened.
Yeah.
And something is happening.
This is excellent,
and it's growing.
Yeah.
It's
just
growing.
the beginning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just the beginning. And I'm happy to be a pioneer part of this, like a pioneer in this. So speaking of the scamming talk and the different people who's trying to just kind of bring down the project and trying to discourage our people from Ghana entirely, I've definitely heard some talk about the Pan-African Village being in the courts. I heard some talk about land not being registered, and a lot of people just hands involved. So I wanted to know if you could shed any light on what's happening in the courts. Is it finished? Do our people, are they okay, the ones who already bought land here? Like, are they at stake at losing or at risk of losing their land?
Well, let me put it in perspective. When the Nana Okatachi Amenfi, the 7th, I believe it is, when he first had the idea, he presented this idea to his elders. As I told you, he didn't come to me alone as Nicodemus in the night.
Yeah.
He came to me with traditional leaders from his traditional council.
Right.
They brought this project to me as something endorsed. When we went to promote it at his palace, we found out that he had invited his traditional council. He invited the regional minister of the region. He invited several dignitaries there. And we did this all in the open. I'm saying that to say that all the signals of transparency was there. So it was after all of these things had done, and after people were successfully purchasing plots, paying their service fee, and beginning to develop there, that there emerged a family. In Ghana, we have stool lands, government lands, but stool lands are usually governed by a stool. It's made up of families. And in that land tenure is different from Western land tenureship, where you just outright buy land and own it.
Okay.
So we have to understand that, coming from America or from any European countries, about land tenureship. So this family emerged and said that 150 acres of the land that was in the 5,000 belonged to their family.
Okay.
And they were not receiving any remuneration for that. So it was an internal affair that had to be sought out between the king and the head of this family. So we got to know of this. We sat down on that. We realized it was going to be handled internally, which is what is encouraged in Ghana before you go to the court system. People like to sit down as a family, work it out together. And they even brought in another powerful chief, well-respected, used to be the former vice president of the National House of Chiefs, came in to try to mediate between the family members and the king. And they had problems settling on, technically speaking, whose right it was to actually sell the land and have access to whatever resources that the land was being, like I say, not purchased like sale like that, but access to some of the money that was being used for service fees. And so eventually the family that had this conflict, they brought the matter to court. And it was in court. And it's when it went to court that they had this press conference and made a press statement and allegations, as I said, without investigation. They mentioned the king's name, his civilian name, without the respect of even mention that he was the king of the land, the overall landlord.
Right.
They
like
mentioned,
he a regular person.
absolutely.
Right?
They mentioned Obakesi's name, Nana Obakesi, and they made him almost regular person. And then they mentioned my name, and then they had to say alias, Rabbi Kohen, the leader of PanAfrican. They brought PanAfrican into it, which has nothing to do with it. But they did it in a very negative, connotating manner, as if we were involved with something in a scheme, that was illegal or negative or cheating people. We even had the nerve to make it a scam. But that was the twist that some African diaspora doctor of propaganda had helped to lend to it, to try to, muddy some of our names, especially mine. That's why they highlight my name, underline my name, in any event, and said that I was the leader and director of the group. But what it is that when we did a corporation, like any company that's registered in Ghana, by the registration law, you have to mention directors. And I'm mentioned as one of the directors. Okay. But as I mentioned in my narrative, if you listen closely, the Asebu Pan-African Village, we never carried on the business under that company because it's the traditional council that took responsibility of doing the business for the land allocation, the land allotment. I have no land in Asebu to sell.
Yeah, right.
And so therefore, I didn't sell any land, and I'm not selling land in Asebu. And so I said there were people who acted as agents in order to make sure that people who were interested in the land of Asebu, then they provide that information and they provided that service. And so it should be understood in that manner and in that way. So they had the press conference alleging that their land had been taken from them, had been stolen from them, that they brought the matter to court, and then they were begged to bring the matter out of court, and then the matter ended back up in court. Well, in Ghana, we have a terminology, I beg you, Wapaucho. Okay. So it's a way of compensating. It doesn't mean you're on your knees literally begging. Yeah. It means that you are pleading to let's reason together. Yeah. Come, let us come together and reason. Yeah, resolve. And so it was a natural state by Ghana culture and character to plead with the family, let's take this out of court and let's settle this at home. Because court, in some sense, is still considered the white man's law. True, yeah. So excuse for lack of a better expression. Right. But in any event, yes. And it went to court, it came out of court, and it's going back to court. Soon to be settled. And Nana's position is that no matter what family owns land in the Sable, like Okatachi, Nana, Okatachi and Memphis, his contention is that no matter who the family is, no matter what rights to land they have, it doesn't supersede his position as the Oman Hen and the king of the land. Period. So he still has to be respected and passed through before any land can be claimed or allocated. So he's done nothing wrong because he made this presentation to his elders. He presented this as a wide open case and transparent. So he's done nothing wrong. But in the face of the controversy, what he has offered and what he is saying, that eventually this court case is going to be won by himself. But in the event that somebody is unsatisfied because their land happens to fall within the jurisdiction of this 150 acres, and not every plot falls in that. Right. Some few of them are on that property that the family is claiming, and some is on free land that Nana has full discretion to offer to people. But he said if you want to come out of that area, he can offer you another plot and the land is not contended. Right. And the same as Asebu area. Okay. And if you have the patience, you can hold on and wait until all that's cleared up and we can keep you settled, where you are. And, and at the same token, the family itself is saying that anybody who wants to come to them and, you say pay for peace and, give them a little something so that they're satisfied and they leave you alone. Right. You can do that as well. Okay. But it's not something that's unfixable. Again, with the system here in Ghana, individuals by themselves don't necessarily own land. Families do. So you can get a land, you can go into the whole process, and maybe there's a family member that doesn't agree, doesn't like what happened. He can come and contend with you. and he can take you to court. Doesn't mean he's going to win.
Right.
Doesn't mean he's right.
Right.
It only means he has a right to contest you.
Yeah.
And like any contest, somebody wins, somebody loses.
Right.
Unless you take it out of the contest and say, how can we both win?
Okay.
How can we reason together? How can we both win?
Yeah.
It don't have to be win or loser. It could be win-win.
Right.
It depends on the reasoning and the process that you choose to follow.
Okay. So as of today, the land is registered, and according to the King's interview that I saw, and the people who've already invested in the Pan-African Village, they're not at risk of losing anything.
No, they're not.
Okay.
And what you mentioned is very important to be clear on. As I said in the beginning, the reason why we didn't collect money up front in the beginning because it was raw land. Mm-hmm. The land had to be demarcated. The plots had to be marked out. They had to be labeled.
Yes.
Whole site plan had to come into play.
Yeah.
Now Ghana's trying to tighten up its land laws in terms of new security systems are being put in place to stop people from being scammed, stop people from selling land 2 and 3 times.
Yes.
The same piece of land 2 to 3 times, two to three different people.
Yeah.
So that means laws are being made to make it even more secure. So now, within just this last month, July, the land that has been allocated and demarcated has been registered with lands. So previously, people who were having a problem registered their land. We understand now, according to the Oman Hen, they can take that land and be registered at Lands Department.
Lands Commission. Okay.
Lands Commission, who governs land law here in Ghana.
Okay.
So that'll clear up that problem as well.
Right. Good. Good. Well, we definitely, have forward moving going on, and I appreciate that being a part of, the Pan-African Village, as well as a part of just Asebu in general. I appreciate us letting our followers know that, this is real. We have no intention to scam anyone. We have no intention to do bad business. You just have a lot of people that are either jealous of what we're doing here, or they're literally just coming to, create discord. And so you can't listen to all of that. You have to go directly to the founding, the leaders of the project to get real answers so that you're comfortable with your move here. So just really quickly, because I know you're a busy man, I want to talk about leasehold, and I want to know if you can explain what is an indenture and what does leasehold mean. Because a lot of our people are afraid. Now, mind you, they don't got nothing in America, so I don't think they should be having all this fear anyway, because you're getting way more than you will be getting in America. But can we explain what leasehold mean? Is their land going to be taken in 50 years or 99 years, depending on whatever the leasehold is? Do they have to worry about that?
No, unless you are part of some strange 1%, percentage coming about. I say that to say that almost 100%, 99% of anybody who has a leasehold in Ghana, they never lost their land and never lose their land. We have to remember something very important. After having had over 250 to 300 years of ravishing through the slave trade, the enslavement of African people, we've had almost a century of colonialism. And so if you want a situation like South Africa, or a situation like America or Australia, where people from Europe or any other place can come and buy land and own it over the indigenes, you would see that Ghana would be in trouble in the rest of Africa.
Yes.
But the land belongs to the people, not individuals. So therefore, there is a leasehold law for anybody who's not a Ghanaian citizen from owning land outright. And so the leasehold actually has it so you can own land for up to 49 years. And if you have your citizenship or residency, you can own it up to 99 years. And it used to be, if you're a citizen, you own it up for freehold. That's as close that you can come to owning land. But the Nana has pledged, the elders understand that anybody who's holding a leasehold land, you would not be in fear of losing that land or have to buy it over again at the expiration of that lease. It is, we have what we call assignment and leasehold. The assignment is something that was utilized so that it was not put in there the annual fee of rental or even the year term limits. But the actual leasehold, which most people receive when they invest in land here, is a safe document, is protected by law, it's protected by courts, it's protected by traditional systems, traditional understanding, so that you would not be in jeopardy of losing that land at the end of your lease term. And some of the indenture language actually says that, again, renewable at the end of the 49-year period. That gives you the security that your grandchildren, your children will not be in jeopardy of losing the land that you've invested in or have developed. So we should understand these systems, and these systems are actually protect the overall larger family of the African interests. So we should not be intimidated by that, and we should not feel that we are being set up to be cheated. And so that was what the land system, the land tenureship here in Ghana, is involved with.
So the indenture is basically like in America we would say deed.
It's a deed.
Like
it's a title.
Okay.
An indenture is like the title to the land, your entitlement to the land. Unfortunately, we left here as in the early days as indentured servants. It means you own property. That is your document of property.
Yes.
And gives your security before any court order that I have my indenture, I have my deed or my title or my legal document for ownership and for this land, for me to possess it, for me to live on it, and me to develop it.
Yes. And in those indentures or deed, you have the seal of approval, you have the Lands Commission stamp, you have the king's signature, the chief's signature, the elders, you have witnesses. So it's a pretty legitimate document. It's not like we're just making up paperwork and giving it to you guys.
And it also traces the history of the land. In other words, it usually mentions the traditional area that the land is in. It mentions the head of the family or the chief or king of the owner of the land, and the Abusi Openi. So what you would want to look for are one of three titles, if not all. Either the king, which is called the Oman Hen, the traditional ruler, or the queen mother, Obahima, or the Abusi Openi, which means the head of the family. So in Africa, our families have structure.
Yeah.
So you have the king, you have the queen mother, and then you have the head of family. And these are usually the custodians of the land, not the owners of the land. Custodian in that they are responsible for looking out for the protection of the land and the interests of the whole village and the people.
Yeah.
And they should be on your indenture. One of them has to be on your indenture to validate it, unless you are buying land from an individual. And even when you're buying land from an individual who bought it before you from that, it should mention that their line of ownership stems from the traditional council or the chief or traditional area before it got to you, that person, before it gets to you. But the lineage should be in the papers.
Okay. Thank you, Kohen. So I just have a couple more questions. You pretty much answered that one already. How do those watching ensure that they are getting legitimate land? And that's basically a lands commission's check, to make sure the owner is the owner. And then those things that he mentioned should be in that indenture. But is there anything else you want to add to that to make sure they know that they're getting good land?
Well, the first thing you want to do is not operate on your own. Operate with someone who has a knowledge of the land, a representative, an agent, someone that you trust. Then you should have make sure that you can do a land search, and you have a legitimate land search to make sure that the people who are involved with your documents are actually the actual sellers or owners of the land who's selling it. And then, as you mentioned, they have to go through the signature of the court to make sure the language in it is consistent with the laws of the land, and then the court stamps of that, validating with the proper witnesses. And you have to have a proper site plan. The site plans today are done with GPS to make sure that the plot that you're buying is the plot that's documented inside of the indenture. And that's done with your longitudinal, latitudinal lines by the degrees and by the minutes. Because you know now it's not by an individual walking the line and pointing with his finger and saying, this is your plot. But it has to be fit. It's GPS. It fits down. You're standing on your plot, and that is the plot. And so those things you want to look for. And the coordinates are on the site plan down on the bottom. That says the feet of your land, whether it's 80 by 100, whether it's 100 by 100, or 79 by 99. Those coordinates are on it. And that's another thing. You should understand that traditionally we use language generally in Ghana. And what I mean by that is when a person comes here and says they want to buy an acre, we know an acre is measured by measurements.
Thank you, Cohane.
But here, generally, we say 4 plots are an acre.
Yes.
And so when a person says, I'll sell you an acre, what they're saying is selling you 4 plots. But when you get those 4 plots and you measure it by what an acre is, it may not be exact up to a full acre.
No.
What they're saying is 4 plots is an acre. And but when you get your site plan might say 0.79 acre.
Right.
And you say, but this is only 3/4 of an acre. You promised me an acre. But they were thinking, I'm promising you 4 plots.
Right.
And because land now is becoming more valuable in Ghana every day, because people are after it, land has reduced. It used to be a time a plot of land was about 100 by 125. 100 by 125, 4 plots was an acre.
Yeah, right.
Then it reduced to 100 by 100.
100 by 100.
And that was closer to an acre. That might be about 0.85.
Yeah.
Now, especially in valuable areas that are becoming developed, you are lucky to get a plot at 80 by 100 because most often it's only 80 by 80.
Yep.
And sometimes now 70 by 80 because you're in a developing area that's developing fast, and as the land shrinks, the remaining plots get more valuable.
Yeah.
So you'll be lucky today to get 100 by 100.
Right.
But don't think that they cheated you on purpose. It's part of the language,
Yeah.
general language, that 4 plots is an acre. And it might not be up to an acre. Most often it's not up to an acre by actual measurements.
Right. Yeah, so we were saying 4 plots. So I just have one more question for you. But before I ask the last question, I want to get you on camera saying that you will come back because I would like for you to touch on interbanking, inflation, and exchange rates. I just feel like that's a different conversation.
Oh, yes,
And
it is.
And it's, pretty lengthy. And so I just want, my particular followers to understand that because it's something that I'm going through right now with the interbanking, exchange rate, and inflation fees or whatever. And so I just want you to tell us you're going to come back and enlighten us on those particular topics when you get time.
Because of you, my gift to you is that I'll come back.
Thank you.
And because it's a very important topic, because U.S. and America and Europe, for the most part, because of the stability of the currencies, even though they may be unstable, they don't let you know they're unstable. All you know is you suffer inflation. And the closest thing to the instability in the economies in America is the gas pump. You see gas prices going up and down, up and down. And but here in Ghana and Africa and the developing world, we suffer here with the instability of currency every day. So every day you have to find out what rates are. They're not stable. Literally every day you wake up in the morning and find out what is the dollar CD rate. And depending on the dollar and the pound, unfortunately, all prices are regulated and adjusted. And because we are lagging behind in production, we import almost everything we utilize. And so that means every product coming into the country has fluctuation. And when you're into construction and building, it means that when you get a CD quote, it will not last more than a week or a month to stay the same. So if someone is quoting to you, it's best to try to get a dollar equivalent. That's the closest you'll get to stability. And the moment your dollar comes in the country, it's converted to CDs, which also devalues the value of it by the time it gets to the person who may be working with you. So that's just a teaser of how much we have to get into that subject.
Yeah, we just can't gauge it. So thank you for that small teaser because that was actually a lot. So my last question for today, again, I want to thank you for your time, Rabbi. I really appreciate you taking time out to address this matter. But do you have any encouraging words that you would like to leave to our diasporan community as it pertains to coming home and being comfortable with their move and giving their life savings and their retirement towards the Pan-African Village and the Asebu project in general? Like, is there anything you want to say to encourage them to move forward?
Yes, I would say that I've been here, first of all, for 29 plus years, living here, my residence. I've been traveling back and forth to Ghana for 37 years.
Wow.
So, and I've traveled around Africa. I'm involved with a lot of projects. And I would say that when I made this move almost 30 years ago, my confidence in that move is still with me 100%, that I made no mistake. I have had no regrets, and I haven't looked back. I say that as a personal testimony because nothing can be more convincing than the proof of the pudding being in the eating. I've tasted it. I'm in it. And I've seen more people come here in the last couple of years since the year of return, since the COVID and all of that, coming to try Ghana out as an alternative. And I would say that is a viable alternative. I would say that Africa needs investment, not only in money, but people's time, people's trust, people's labor, and people's body. The greatest loss Africa ever had was not her gold and diamonds and oil and bauxite. The greatest loss Africa ever suffered were her people. And if we invested just even a small percentage in Africa of what we've invested in foreign lands to make them what they are, we would see Africa transform overnight. All of the abuse that we suffered has not ended in America. But what has not ended, to our discomfort, is our trust in America with all the abuses. And if we lent a little bit of that trust into Africa to help fix what we perceive is wrong with it and lend solutions to what we consider the problems and the challenges, we can see Africa transform overnight. But you got to be in it to win it.
Yep.
You got to be in this to win it. You got to be, not armchair analyzers of Africa's problems and challenges. We have to be in the game. Everybody's in this game. I challenged some students last week to take a pad and a pencil and go to the airport here in Ghana and spend 2 days there and take the statistics of those who are coming on those planes and landing here. And you see the number of Europeans and Asians that are coming here, not as tourists, but as investors. They come here to get rich. They come here to change the fortunes of their life. They come here to make a difference in the countries that they're living in. And we're the only ones that are lagging behind in confidence, that trying to figure out whether Africa is worth investing in or not.
Wow.
And we should not miss that boat this time, because we know that this opportunity, this door, this window will not last forever.
No.
And Africa is worth fighting for. Africa is worth defending. And Africa is worth you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kohane. That was beautiful. I like how you put that together. Come on now. So is there anything else you want to say? You got it all out? Got your notes together?
You've invited me back, so
okay, you'll save some for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you press that like button, subscribe, cut your post notifications on so you don't miss anything. And until next time, I love you with the love of the Most High.
Peace and blessing.
Shalom.
Shalom.